Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into, well, a truly fascinating and maybe somewhat mysterious topic, the Master CVV Yoga line. Get ready for a concept of human evolution and spiritual insight that's probably unlike anything you've encountered before.
Yeah, what's really fascinating here, I think, is that this deep dive is unique. We're relying solely on Master CVV's own handwritten stuff. It's diaries, notes, explanations. So this gives us a really unfiltered, direct view into the mind of someone with let's say, a truly ambitious vision, a rather audacious vision, actually, for humanity.
Absolutely. So our mission today is really to unpack this complex system, human creation, evolution, understanding these almost incomprehensible processes Master CVV carried out. And what makes this yoga line so radically different from what you might normally expect? Okay, let's explore this. The origin story for this whole yoga line, it's incredibly compelling. It kicks off with this really striking, quite unconventional birth Master CV orchestrated. But sadly, the child didn't survive. The sources say it was due to insufficient life wave. I'm curious, what exactly did he mean by that insufficient life wave?
That's a crucial starting point. Master CVV, he didn't just see this as, a personal tragedy. He identified that insufficient life wave as a fundamental flaw, a deficiency in the human format itself, like a lack of the vital energy needed, the capacity to sustain a certain quality of life, or in this specific case, to allow that child to thrive. So if you connect this to the bigger picture, it wasn't just one event. It was the catalyst for him realizing this sort of universal flaw within human existence, and even in the cosmic factors that influence it.
Okay. So a systemic issue, not just an isolated incident. And to tackle these pretty profound defects, Master CV didn't just, sit back. He actively selected developed persons as mediums and gave them these needed spiritual lifts. Here's where it gets really interesting for me. He even tested the intended changes for the human structure successfully in his own physical body, and partly in others too. What does that tell us about his whole approach?
Well, this personal experimentation is absolutely key. It really highlights his hands-on, almost scientific method, but in a spiritual context, When the sources mention developed persons as mediums, they mean people with a certain sensitivity, maybe a spiritual readiness. Master CVV used them to observe and, facilitate these changes. The spiritual lifts, those were the energetic upgrades, the consciousness shifts he gave them. And beyond just the human format, he also initiated changes to cosmic factors. These are like the underlying universal forces governing everything. Their full effect, his literature says, will manifest on a timeline unknown to anyone. So that suggests a really long-term, ongoing evolutionary thing, something extending way beyond a single lifetime, maybe even an era.
Wow, unknown to anyone. That's a staggering thought. An ongoing cosmic process. So what did Master CV actually aim to achieve with all this for humanity? His objectives, reading them in his writings, they sound incredibly audacious. He talked about enabling humanity gain all jnana from Kundalini and conscious physical state, and facilitating all humans attain Kaivalya state and realize Eshwara-like jnanas. For someone maybe less familiar with those terms, what would that actually look like?
They really are revolutionary aims. Jnana from Kundalini in conscious physical state. That means gaining profound spiritual knowledge, real wisdom, but not in some trance state. While fully aware, active in your physical body, Kundalini, often pictured as that coiled energy at the spine's base, accessing jnana from it implies a direct, embodied experience of higher wisdom. And Kaivalya state, that's usually understood as like ultimate liberation, where the individual soul realizes its pure, unconditioned nature separate from the material world. To realize Eshwara like jnanas means grasping the divine, the ultimate reality, with that same deep insight, that direct experience that the greatest sages have. These aren't, minor tweaks. They're about a complete transformation of human consciousness, human capability even.
Right. And maybe the most radical aim of all, the triggering evolutionary changes to human format to receive and to sustain unlimited life waves and heralding eternal human beings.
Yeah.
If you connect that back, it's not just spiritual enlightenment, is it? It's a fundamental transformation of existence itself. What could eternal human beings possibly mean here?
It's a really profound concept. In his notes, it implies a human form that's capable of sustaining consciousness, vitality, way beyond what we normally think of as a mortal lifespan. It's not just like avoiding death. It's evolving the very structure of the human being to be able to integrate and crucially sustain huge amounts of life energy. So transcending the limits of decay, the physical end. This would involve bringing changes to cosmic forces for such evolutionary process, meaning the very fabric of reality would have to shift to allow for such an evolved being. It raises a really important question for you to think about. what would society, culture, our whole understanding of purpose, what would that look like for beings who don't face the same limits of time that we do?
That's a mind-bending question.
Right.
And this wasn't just some internal vision he kept to himself, right? He actually made a public announcement. He published a declaration called the Swatantra Prakatana in newspapers back in July 1910, announcing this groundbreaking work. Publishing something like that in newspapers back then, that seems incredibly bold.
It really was. It underscores the public and systemic nature of his work. It wasn't meant to be some secret esoteric practice. It was basically a formal announcement of a new evolutionary path for humanity.
This truly grand vision, it makes me wonder more about the visionary himself.
Yeah.
Who exactly was Master CVV?
Right. Master CVV, full name Kanchupati Venkasamy Rao, was born August 4th, 1868 in Kumbakonam, Tamil Nadu, India. And he left his physical body on May 12, 1922. What's really crucial to get is his unconventional background. His birth cycles continued in a unique way, accumulating enormous willpower at astral level. The astral level that refers to a non-physical plane often linked with emotions, thoughts, consciousness beyond the physical. So he didn't just inherit power, he'd accumulated it across unique previous lifetimes. And critically, the sources are very clear. He did not practice any yoga in any of the previous births. And referring to masters as any historical personality rishi is without any base. This completely sets him apart. He wasn't building on existing traditions, he was charting an entirely new course.
So, not a traditional guru, not a reincarnated saint in the way we usually think of it. He really was his own laboratory then, wasn't he? Master CVV used his own physical as an experiment ground for the changes in the human format.
Mm-hmm.
And he recorded these experiments as completed and successful.
Precisely. His direct embodied experience was the bedrock. And what's fascinating, really, is his claim of absolute authority over this line. Master CVV declared, and this is a quote, "He is the only authority for this line, and no interpretation beyond what was given out shall be made by anyone." He called it a direct line, advised against explaining it by referencing, teachings of other gurus. That's a very strong statement of self-sufficiency, uniqueness, sets it completely apart from any other spiritual tradition. It means, basically, you have to understand his work purely on its own terms.
Okay, that's a strong statement.
Yeah.
It makes you ask, how did this unique system actually operate? Master CV recorded a specific hierarchy on December 10th, 1912. Master CV MTA 1 point. Could you elaborate a bit on what MTA and 1 point mean in this structure?
Sure. MTA is quite intriguing. It stands for Various Sages and Developed Souls Who Delivered Information at the Behest of the Evolving Origin. These were entities. Some even appeared in physical form to the mediums, according to his notes. They acted as conduits, maybe agents, in the process CV initiated. They weren't independent teachers, more like instruments within his larger design.
Okay, instruments.
Yeah.
And then there's 1 point. That sounds even more abstract.
It is, yeah. But Master CVV's notes from around 1921, 1922 suggest we shouldn't understand 1 point through old philosophical ideas. Instead, think of it in terms of the mechanical aspects of the non-physical spiritual aspects. So less like a philosophical concept of unity and more like a foundational operational hub, or maybe a source of the energetic principles underpinning the whole yoga line. It's the energetic engine, you could say, that facilitates the changes CVV was initiating.
All right, the engine behind it all. So if Master CV was doing these cosmic and human transformations, what about the actual yoga practice in this yoga line? You might be wondering, like I am, what specific exercises or meditations are involved. We'll get ready for a bit of a paradigm shift, because the sources state directly. The objective of this line is not achievable by practice by any individual, unlike other yoga paths.
This is truly revolutionary. It completely overturns our usual understanding of spiritual paths where individual effort, discipline, that's paramount. And furthermore, the sources say the evolutionary changes initiated by him do not require anyone to do such practice now. It implies a fundamental shift in how spiritual evolution is understood, from something you do to something that has been initiated and is just unfolding. It's more like a cosmic process than a personal workout plan.
And adding to this whole mystery, Master CVV kept all the final processes performed during the last 14 months before leaving the physical as secret.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently no records were found for them. He also didn't leave any instructions for other people to propagate or continue the practice in the specific way he started it. That really reinforces that unique non-practice-based nature you were just talking about.
It absolutely does. It suggests the core of his work was so foundational, maybe so integral to him, that it wasn't something just anyone could replicate through practice. If these profound evolutionary changes have already been set in motion cosmically, and they don't require individual practice in the traditional sense, Well, it fundamentally redefines our role, doesn't it? It means maybe we're participants in an unfolding process rather than the primary architects of our own spiritual evolution, at least within this particular line.
Hmm. Despite the huge, almost unfathomable scale of this line, there's a surprisingly simple, profound invocation mentioned in the sources, the Satana Sankalpam, which is simply, Master CVV Namaskaram, please rectify and develop my system. How does such a simple phrase fit into this complex, non-practice system?
It's a beautiful paradox, isn't it? If the deep changes are initiated cosmically, then maybe this invocation acts as a kind of energetic alignment, a conscious receptivity to the work that's already ongoing. Namaskaram, that's a gesture of reverence, surrender. And the request to rectify and develop my system, it's like an openness to allowing those initiated changes to refine and evolve your own being. So it's about participation through surrender, maybe, rather than active practice.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. And for anyone interested in exploring this further, the continuation of this knowledge is also clear through our guiding personalities. People like Gurudev Sri Vituri Prabhakar Sastri and Gurudev Sri A.B. Srinivasa Hikarilu, who's also known as Seesaw. They're mentioned in the sources.
Yes, exactly. These individuals have played a really significant role in upholding and conveying the understanding of this unique line through their own insights, their experiences of its principles unfolding. They kind of help us grasp the lineage, the continuity of the profound insights Master CVV provided.
And for those who really want to dive even deeper, Master CVV's original diaries, his notes, explanations, along with those MTA letters, they are available in ebook format. Wow! What an incredible journey into something truly extraordinary. We've seen how Master CZ envisioned and apparently initiated a profound evolutionary shift for humanity, all based on his own unique discoveries, from that traumatic origin story to the really radical aim of eternal human beings and that surprising twist that individual practice isn't required. This deep dive has definitely offered us a shortcut to understanding a spiritual path that seems to stand entirely on its own.
Yeah, this exploration of Master CV's yoga line, it really does challenge our conventional ideas about spiritual practice, about evolution itself. It shifts our perspective, maybe, from individual effort being the main driver to this grander, cosmically initiated process that we're now simply part of.
It certainly makes you wonder about the many, many profound paths to understanding existence and how evolution might actually manifest on scales we're only just beginning to even think about.
Which raises, I think, an important final question for you to consider. If the human format and even cosmic factors can be fundamentally changed by such an initiated process, how might we possibly discern these subtle shifts manifesting, maybe in our collective consciousness, or even in the natural world around us, especially if we're not actively practicing a traditional yoga to look for them?